everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Charlotte. I am known as the trauma-informed teacher, which just means that I have had trauma in my past and not taking care of myself and learned the hard way that it's important, if you want to pour into others, to first pour into yourself. So this channel is all about taking care of yourself. I especially am trying to get my message out there to busy working moms, whether you're working at home because you're a stay-at-home mother, maybe homeschooling or doing other community activities, or whether you are working outside of the home. It's really important to make sure that you're taking care of you. So that is what my message is about on this channel. If you've never joined me before, welcome. I have lots of videos on tips and tricks for all parts of your life that have to do with balancing work and family life. So today I want to talk to teachers specifically, but if you are not a teacher, you can definitely apply this to any type of working relationship that you have with other people, especially if you are in a supervisor role. So keep that in mind. So this week was a really busy, crazy week. It was a good week. There were a lot of positive things going on. There were also some not so great things going on in our community. We had a situation where some of our nearby friends had some loss of life at their high school. And so we were all definitely shocked about that. Whenever anything like that happens, it hit very close to home because there are many people in this area who knew some of the people involved in the situation through outside recreation activities that they did. This is a big hunting and fishing area, so there are a lot of people that come to this area at certain times of the year to do hunting and fishing. And so we were connected in many, many ways to the people that lost their family members. And so this was a week of just shock and mourning and disbelief amongst our community members. But also we had some fun things going on. It was Valentine's Day, obviously, on Monday. Our particular school district did not have school this year, not as a holiday for Valentine's Day, but just as what we call a non-day, which means that it's a day set aside in case we had a hurricane or other inclement weather days in the wintertime, that we can use it as a makeup day. And we had not had any inclement weather days, so we were able to just take the day off. So all the kids came back in. Of course, they're still hyped up. They've had sugar. They still have sugar. They're eating sugar for breakfast. They're bringing it with them. They were kind of crazy. We had some special things going on. And our schedule was just a little bit out of whack. And so it was a full moon also, which I don't know if you are in education or not, but I will tell you that a full moon is a thing. It's a real thing. Every single year that I have taught, and I'm getting closer and closer to 30 years here in the education profession, and it doesn't matter what grade level I have taught. I've taught all different grade levels, pre-kindergarten, all the way up through helping with high school students. And it's just every single year, every full moon that we have, it's just nuts. The kids do weird things. They get agitated and they get in trouble a lot more. So that was a lot this week. And I have been seeing all these teacher YouTubers and Instagrammers post about how it was a crazy week for them too, in other states and other places. So it's definitely a thing. And it just made me think about how, as a teacher, you really kind of gauge whether or not things are going well for you based on whether your classroom is running smoothly. So when we have these times of the year where the kids get kind of out of whack, we get kind of out of whack, there's just a lot going on, and it can be a confusing and frustrating time. Sometimes it's hard for us to separate that from our own performance, our own self-worth and our image. And we have to remind ourselves that we went into this profession for the right reasons, and we are good people even on those days that our lessons flop or the days that the kids don't do what we say. Kids are making their own choices. And yes, our attitude affects them sometimes and causes them to make choices that aren't that great, but also we can't take responsibility for everything that's happening all the time. However, we can set ourselves up for better self-care of our mental health if we have good strategies for maintaining classroom discipline. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. Be sure to watch to the very end because I'm going to give you 10 easy takeaway strategies that you can use right away in your own classroom starting tomorrow, Monday morning, no matter what grade you teach, that will help you keep your sanity even on those difficult days. So this is all about classroom discipline and how it impacts your self-care. Tip number 1 is make sure to build relationships first with your students. It's true in any profession, people are not going to follow your lead unless they know that you care about them. So in everything that you do, you always have to maintain that, you have to project that sense to whoever you are in charge of, students especially because they're younger than us, that you care about them, that we care about them. So getting to know them, knowing what makes them tick, knowing their personalities, their preferences, knowing what they like to do on their spare time, attending some of their games, going to activities and supporting them in ways outside the classroom. Those are all good ways to do it. But also the way that we discipline students has a lot to do with the relationship. So when you need to say something to a student that's maybe not so positive, first of all, make sure that you sandwich it just like any other time you're trying to talk to someone about something that might not be the greatest. Try to make sure that you also appreciate them, or at least appreciate their perspective. One of the reasons why students, especially middle and high school students, will argue with us is because they think that we don't see their point of view. So by starting off the conversation with, I can understand how you might feel like this, and try to put yourself in the student's shoes and say something that you think they will agree with. Like, I understand, Johnny, why you might be aggravated that I'm asking you to take these notes today. You don't feel like it, it's early in the morning. You might have stayed up late last night. You may not be feeling the greatest because you've had a lot of sugar. I don't know, those are just some examples. But I really need you to do this because XYZ. How is this going to benefit them? So start off with, acknowledging their feelings and making sure that they know that you care, that you see their side, but then here's how it will benefit you by following the directions, or here is the why that I'm asking you to do it this way. That usually comes across a lot better than just simply disciplining a student, go sit in the hallway, you're not doing this. Now, that's not to say that I would never sit a student temporarily in a timeout area, whether that be outside the doorway with the door open and I can monitor them, in a corner in my room that's more private, that I can still keep track of what they're doing. Your district has rules probably about what you are and are not allowed to do. But before I try that strategy, I'm always going to want to try to acknowledge the student's feelings and explain my why. Not everything requires an explanation, but when you can give an explanation to a student, that's just that little extra touch that shows them that you care about their feelings, that you appreciate where they're coming from and what your ask is requiring of them, and it builds your relationship with them. And then I would say also, when a student gets in trouble, that make sure that you come back later and talk to them in a more neutral time about what happened. Make sure the student has calmed down first, because you can't talk to a student and reason with them when they're still in that hyper, either aggravated mode or defiant mode. You have to make sure that they've gotten through that side of their emotions about the situation. And then you can come back and give them sort of that calm, okay, let's talk about what happened the other day. Is there anything you want to tell me, about why you were acting that way? Or, is there something I was missing? Or, the student, how to approach it with that student in a way that won't set them off. Just try to have a very calm and reasonable conversation with them and treat them with respect so that they know that their feelings are valued and that, you're not just forcing your way on them. That's always going to go a long way. All right, tip number 2. Make sure that you teach and reteach your procedures and routines. This goes for any grade level, but students aren't going to do what you expect unless you tell them what you expect and model it for them and have them model it for each other. So once if you see that a few students are acting up and not doing things your way, then that's the time when you can stop class and you can ask someone to repeat the directions or say what they're supposed to be doing or model what they're supposed to be doing. Don't allow your class to go on and on and on and on if there is a decent number of students that are not following the directions. When you come back from a break of any kind, even if it's only like a long weekend, make sure you tell students what you're looking for that day. And also think about your activities that you're asking students to do. If you have something exciting going on, more hands-on type things, something involving food or anything where they're going to get wound up a little bit about the activity, which I tend to do a lot of that stuff in my class, just because I like to teach with those kinds of activities. You have to make sure that you tell students, okay, we're going to do this activity, but I need to see this, this, and this from you. Don't make it too complex, but make sure they understand if these things happen, and then lay out your things that you don't want to see, then next time we're not going to do hands-on, or next time we're not going to do a lab. Next time it will be a worksheet until I can see that you can follow the appropriate directions. But if you're willing to do these things this way, then we can have fun and we can continue to do these activities. So just be very specific. Try to think about what they might do and head it off ahead of time. Let them know that you don't want to see any of that. For example, if we use water in one of my labs, what's the big thing that I'm afraid of? I'm afraid of kids throwing it at each other for fun, it getting on the floor and someone falling, right? So I have a reason, a very clear reason. It's a safety reason that I can explain to students my why. And also it's something I need to make sure I say every single time we use water. I don't want to see this or this. If I see that, you're out of the activity. You're going to be doing a worksheet, and have your plan B set up so that you can pull that student off to the side immediately and take them out of the situation that they're creating. You can't tolerate certain things with your students. Otherwise, other students will start to pick up on that, and then you're going to have more and more and more students that are behaving in ways that are going to create a problem for you in classroom discipline. All right, tip number 3. So just like you have to anticipate activities, like what might go wrong in your activities, you know that there are going to be certain times of the year when your class might be a little crazy. For example, right after Valentine's Day, anytime you have a full moon. And also, when they come back from Christmas break, they have usually forgotten how to have structure in their lives. Not everybody, but on the whole, the average student forgets how to follow the regular procedures in class when they've been away for a long time. The younger the student, the less time that takes. So if you're dealing with like kindergartners, first graders, you have a 3-day weekend and boom, you've got to go over procedures again, pretty much for everything. But it doesn't have to be as detailed as it is on the first day of school. It can be more like, okay, let's see if so-and-so can come up and show us how they do this, and then that's the first person that lines up, and then everybody else does it right. So it can be simple and quick, but make sure that you're anticipating, hey, this is going to be a problem for me today, probably. Some of the times when we have problems in the middle school are spirit weeks. We can have a lot of trouble because the students are getting to dress up and do fun things and go to assemblies, and anytime the schedule is out of whack, it can get a little crazy. I had an observation from my principal last Friday, and it's, the first time it's happening. The second time you aren't ready. It's just like unannounced usually, and you're unprepared. And, it's not a big deal because I'm always doing things in my class that I'm not worried about someone observing me. But it was just the fact that we had a weird schedule that day. So my class started at 1:30. At 2 o'clock, we had to go to the football field to take a picture with the whole entire school, which meant that our students were kind of like excited and not really wanting to do anything at 1:30 because they knew that was coming. So, you just have to anticipate, okay, these are some things that could happen. And so I just talked to my students, like, I know that at 2 o'clock we're getting ready to do this, but I need 30 minutes of concentration from you guys. And, I got more out of them that way than if I had just tried to start the lesson and pretended like that wasn't going on, because that was going on and it was a real thing for them. So try to head things off as much as you can, anticipate your problem days, and you might have to let some things go on those days. Don't let anything go that's going to pose a safety issue, or, anything that could cause you a problem with your administration. But you're not going to send students to the office on days like that for just anything, because for the most part, there's going to be a lot of students that are going to be in the same boat. And if you're having a whole bunch of kids that are misbehaving, then there's something going on. And you might have to just slow down and expect less out of kids on those days. And just plan to take 2 days for your lesson, or a day and a half, instead of a single day for the same thing that you would normally do in that amount of time. Tip number 4, anytime you can conference privately with your students about things that are going wrong, that's the best way to do it. This might not always be the best thing for you to do in your class, because if you're having a problem and it's several people in the class, you might say to the class, I see some of this going on. I want that to stop. This is what I need instead. Then you're not really calling anyone out particular, even though the people that are doing it know that you're talking to them. But if you have problems with a particular student, you can go up to them, get very close to them, and quietly say to them, this is not acceptable behavior. This is what I need to see from you. Just whisper to them. Obviously, with COVID, that limits us a little bit. We have to stay a little further away, but you can whisper enough to them, closer, that only the people that are sitting right around them will hear. On a normal year, I would have just put my face right in their ear and whispered right to them what I wanted, and the people around them can't even understand what you're talking about. They know that kind of what you're talking about because they know what's been going on, but it still gives the students some dignity. And that's one of the things that, especially in middle school, they try to show off around each other. And if they feel like your discipline is taking away their dignity, then they're going to rebel more, and you're going to have more kids in your class giving you a problem, because they're going to try to kind of like steer the group in that direction. So try to discipline privately as much as you can. Be positive, say what you need, what you want, why you want it. If you need to take someone out in the hallway, then do that. As long as you're still monitoring your class, you can put the student in a place where they can't see the other students, but you can still kind of stand with your foot in the doorway and see what's going on, so that the kids in the class are not doing anything, weird while you're out there. All right. Tip number 5, engage parents. I will be honest with you and say this is one of the hard ones for me, because I've had over the years a lot of issues with, calling parents and then them taking up for their child's bad behavior instead of, disciplining their child. I was always the parent that if my kid got in trouble with the teacher, they were in trouble. And was I going to hear my kid hear out what they had to say? Yes, but they weren't going to be right. If a teacher is taking time out of their busy day to call me and tell me that my kid is doing something wrong, then my kid is doing something wrong. That was always the attitude that I took. But there are a lot of parents that don't take that attitude. Maybe they had bad situations with teachers in the past that weren't fair and loving to them growing up. And so they think that maybe the teacher's not on their kid's side. And so, building relationships with a parent is important too. So the more that you can contact parents and let them know who you are in a positive way, when there's nothing bad going on, nothing that their kid is doing that you need to report on negatively, that's going to help, so that if you do have to contact them for something that's negative, that you have a cordial relationship already. That really helps. Some parents are easy. Some parents are just, no matter what you say to them, going to be difficult. But you have to remember that if it's disrupting the learning environment, you owe it to all of the other students and to all of the other families to make that phone call, so that students can continue to learn and be safe and be happy when they come to school and feel part of something that they want to come to. So it's something that I'm growing in. I feel like I've grown a lot in it. Through COVID, I've had more opportunities to speak to parents about things that were going on because the parents really got involved in the lessons more. And I think that's been a positive, that they've been more involved since COVID. At least many of them have been. And so I have learned over the last year or two that, it's so valuable. And a lot of the parents will help you in some way. Even some of those parents that when you call them, they argue and they try to see if maybe you did something to their child. Sometimes they go back after the conversation. As long as you control your own behavior and you are positive and you are kind in the way that you deliver the message to parents and understanding, then a lot of times they'll go back and they'll reflect on their own thoughts, and then they'll come to the conclusion that they were wrong, and they will support you on the back end of that conversation. So it's worth it to take the time to contact parents and engage them in what's going on and ask for their help. Here's what I've done in class, and I'm only going to involve the other people, their parents and the administrators, if it's something that I feel like is a pattern. But I'm trying to more and more engage the parents at an earlier stage so that they can give me suggestions for what works for their child. They've had their son or daughter since birth. They know what works and what doesn't work for that personality. They're with them a lot more. And it's just helpful to have those conversations with the parents and keep the doors of communication open. All right, tip number 6, focus on the wins. So when you're having a rough day, or when you're having a rough week, or even a rough month, rough year, some classes are harder than others, try not to always be thinking about what's going wrong. Don't always get down on yourself about your teaching and your inability to do this or that with this particular class or this particular student, but try to focus on the good things that happen, because as a teacher, there are always good things happening as much as there are difficult things happening. So for example, I was having difficulty with one of my 8th grade classes, and there were a few students who were kind of leading this challenge against some of the rules that I had in my class, and making it difficult for me to get the other students to come along with my procedures in a couple of areas. And I was trying to figure out how to solve it, and it was frustrating me. But then I was sitting there on my planning time, and I was kind of stewing over this and trying to make some plans for what I was going to do differently the next week. And one of my 8th grade students came in to me to talk to me, and she'd asked permission to come and talk to me, and she was just chatting and basically just wanted to fill me in on what was going on in her life. And there were some important things to her that she hadn't talked to other people about, that she wanted to share and confide in me. And I just was really touched by that. I've had this student for, this is the 3rd year I've had her now. She's a student that she can be a wonderful, sweet girl, but she has a lot going on in her life. And right now, she especially has some things going on that are kind of troubling for her. And for her to open up to me and talk to me about those things, it was something that I had to stop and be okay, this and this happened to me today, but this student came in and wanted to talk to me about something that she wasn't talking to anyone else about. So, you have to remember those moments. One thing that I learned to do at another school that I worked for, the staff at that school building had a tradition that I think is awesome, that they had a little box, and every time that something weird happened or funny that happened, there was something they wanted to remember for a long time, they would write it down and put the evidence of that in that box. And then every time they needed a little pick-me-up, the staff would get together and pull out the things and read everything that was in that box. Every time they added something to the box, they would read everything. And it was just such a neat bonding activity for the teachers, and a way for them to let off steam when really, as a teacher, weird things happen. There are some days when you're just what in the world was that day about? Or some students will do things, or some parents will do things, and you're just really? And some of them are so funny, and some of them are not funny at all, but they're just really bizarre. And you could definitely write a book with all the things that happen to you as a teacher by the time you get to the end of your career. So it was just really fun, and I thought it was a great thing to do. You can do it by yourself, or you can do it with a friend at work, or you can do it with your grade level, your department. It's just it's a fun way to kind of, keep your sanity when things around you might be a little crazy. All right, number 7, don't lose your power. That there are a lot of people these days that think that they know what needs to be done in schools, and the only person that really knows what needs to be done in your classroom is you. Obviously, you have standards that you have to follow. You have rules and laws that you have to follow. I'm not telling you to go against any of those. Whatever your requirements are for your district that you work in, for your school building that you work in, you need to follow those to keep your job. And I just to have, the backing of the people that are over you that have authority. But at the same time, like, you're the one that's there all the time with the students. You know what lessons they need. You know what discipline they need. You know who needs to not sit by who. You know when the student needs to just suck it up and just, learn to do something. Like, you're that person that has the training, and that's your classroom. And sometimes people try to take that away from you, and don't let them. You have to learn ways of working around people that feel like they know more about education than you do, even though they're not educators. You have to learn ways of coexisting with them and speaking to them kindly but truthfully, and letting them know when you're not going to change something. And just don't give up your power. When there's someone who is trying to get you to make a decision that's only good for their child and not good for the whole classroom, then don't do it, because you are in charge of all of those students, and that responsibility lies on you to make sure that every student gets what they need, not just one person. And quite often when you're making decisions for a single individual, the decision-making process is so different than when you're trying to consider the needs of an entire class. So keep your power, keep your cool, be kind, and be truthful, and speak the truth in love when you need to. In the long run, people will respect you more for it, and you will not get as much of those challenges if they learn that you're a person that sticks to your guns when you need to. Tip number 8. If you're having problems with student behavior, try resetting your room environment. You can just clean up an area. You can completely reorganize things. You can put things up on the wall. You can change your bulletin boards. You can completely change the student seating. All of these things will kind of like disorient your students temporarily and allow you to regain control. And you think it's funny, but try it. And I'm telling you, it works. I actually just redid my seating in my classroom, which I was going to do anyway. But last week we were having some behavior issues in a couple of classes, and I just decided it's time for me to put my desks back together again. And I'm making the seating chart this time. And I'm going to decide who gets to work with who. So yeah, reset your room environment and see if it works for you. Tip number 9, when you're having problems with a student, try teaming up with colleagues. Especially in the middle grades in high school, you're probably not the only one that's having those issues with that student. So make sure you talk to your colleagues and, ask them what they're doing. If there's someone that is working well with that student, find out what they're doing differently than you. Maybe there's a way that you can try something new to build relationships with that student. Maybe you need to have a better relationship with the parent. Maybe there's a different mentor in that person's life that the other teacher knows about. Or maybe you all just need to sit down together with the parents and have a discussion about the things that you're seeing in all the classrooms and not just your classroom. But it really helps if you have other minds working on the problem with you. And that's what we have school improvement team for. That's what we have behavior intervention staff for. That's what we have all these support personnel for, is so that we have multiple people that can help us when we're running into a situation and we don't know what to do to help the student follow the expectations at school. So use your resources, use your colleagues. 2 brains are better than 1, 4 brains are better than 2. So, work together and you will get much further.
Yes!
And last tip for staying sane and taking care of yourself with classroom discipline is to learn when it's time to just let it go. There are going to be days that are going to go better than others, and you just have to learn when enough is enough, and you might have to address that on another day. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed these 10 tips for teacher self-care through classroom discipline. It really is important to make sure that you have a good handle on your discipline, because everything that you do in the classroom goes back to how well you are preparing your students for the tasks and activities that you want to see out of them. So as a teacher, making sure that you make this a priority is really going to make your day go better, your weeks go better, and you're just going to feel much better about your job. As always, don't forget to work hard, be kind, and amazing things will happen. I will see you next time. Bye.